Welcome everybody to Go Local Live. I'm Josh Fenton, CEO and co-founder. If you weren't on Go Local Live earlier today, you did not see the amazing $6.9 million mansion that Kate Nagel visited this morning. She gave a bit of a tour and oversight and met with Heidi Farmer from Mott & Chase. That property is on the auction blocks. If you've got an extra $6.9 million for that 3.3 acre estate right in the heart of Providence, please jump to it. But I want to take us down to Westerly. Duane Boise, he's the head of a new emerging company down in Westerly, MMJ, who's really at the cutting edge of both healthcare and the development and integration of the marijuana cannabis industry, and how some of those drugs that are being tested are working their way through the testing process and the clinical process. So, Duane, thanks so much for joining us.
Josh, pleasure to meet you. Thanks for having me.
So let's talk about this. You know, this is a whole new frontier for just about everybody. This is an emerging science, it's emerging law, it's a crossover between federal law and state law. We've got healthcare, we've got pharmaceuticals. It has just about everything going on. And you're launching a significant facility down in Westerly and hiring high-level scientists to develop this. Walk us through your company. Give us that elevator pitch, as they say, as to what your company does and how they do it.
So MMJ International Holdings is the clinical trial company that has contracted with Catalent Pharmaceutical Solutions to manufacture a gel cap with essentially THC, CBD, and other active ingredients in that gel cap, in hopes that the FDA will approve it for us to begin clinical trials in MS and HD, Huntington's.
Talk about those two applications. How does it treat Parkinson's? How does it treat Huntington's?
So in MS, the symptoms are muscle rigidity and pain and not being able to sleep. So this gel cap, similar to an ibuprofen, would stop, relieve, and provide relief to MS patients. In Huntington's, it is called chorea, which is Latin for dance-like symptom, and it stops that jerking motion in the patients. And again, the same. The FDA has awarded us an orphan designation in Huntington's disease, which gives us potentially an expedited time through the clinical phase trial to get to an approval of a medicine, some reimbursement back from the federal government to offset some of the cost, and it gives us a de facto patent for 7 years that will protect us in the approved labeling for the drug.
I'm sorry, it was MS, not Parkinson's. And you know, this is, as I think all of us know somebody who has suffered through one of these diseases. Talk about the pressure, the need to find relief for these folks, and where you come in. How did you get to this point in sort of the development of this drug for this purpose?
We've been at this for 7 years now, and to be able to put the science behind what the states haven't done, they've jumped out ahead of this, and the FDA is requiring that clinical trials be done. So we wanted to ensure our success. So in all of 2017, I was running Canada, looking at specific plant genetic strains and how they were affecting people that were suffering from these chronic diseases, basically in the neurological area. Once we isolated the exact plant genetics, then we had to go into the lab and follow the FDA guidance on developing a protocol on producing the extracts, which is our active pharmaceutical ingredient. And we went back to the Drug Enforcement Administration and Health Canada. They issued us a permit 2 years ago to ship. We were the first company to ship highly concentrated THC and CBD into Catalent for the development of a eventually approved FDA drug.
And Duane, you know, why Rhode Island? Why Westerly? What's the advantages of doing business here? You're a global guy. You've worked pretty much all over the world. Why here?
Rhode Island's a beautiful state, obviously the ocean state, And the state logo is hope, right? So these patients are hopeful that we'll be successful. Westerly's a quaint town. We were able to get this done with, really, we were welcomed by the city and the police, public safety officials, the state pharmaceutical board. So being a small state, it was easier to maneuver because we had to have licenses from the state pharmaceutical board to match up with the issuance of the registrations of the Drug Enforcement Administration.
You're at the cutting edge. You've got this complexity of federal oversight, state oversight. I won't even get into municipal, we'll just stick at those two. And the federal and the state laws relative to cannabis and manufacturing and treatment don't always match up. How complex is this for you as an entrepreneur to be able to weave a business strategy through these sometimes even conflicting regulatory structures?
It was very complex. We figured it out. It took a long time to get there. Again, we're not a company that is under the jurisdiction of the DBR in Rhode Island, which controls all the growers and the dispensaries. We're a pharmaceutical company. So even though we're growing cannabis, a Schedule I substance of specific strains, and the way we're going about growing this is quite different than what's going on in the state operations now. We've signed with a specialty company that manufactures a vertical farming unit. We're collecting over 1 million data points. We control everything in that environment so that we can get the same outcome from those plants each time and every time, which is the state growers are not capable of doing what we're able to do from the science side. That's important because eventually the Food and Drug Administration will come in and inspect our facility, want to know how we're going about these processes. And we'll have so much data from each of these vertical farming units that we'll be able to prove our case for the continuing of the manufacturing of the extracts.
Who are your employees? What's the resume look like for the top tier and all the way down to the bottom tier of the type of staffing that you've hired to date and you're going to be hiring?
So 2 answers to that. Right now, we've been issued a Schedule I analytical lab license by the Drug Enforcement Administration. So that lab license would require that we would have 1 or 2 PhD organic chemists and 3 or 4 BSMS organic chemists. So we have signed a contract with the University of Connecticut, and they're very excited from a chemistry side to be involved here because the universities don't have Schedule I licenses, so they're restricted. Because they get federal grants, if they were handling this without the proper licensing, they could lose all their federal grants. So this facility here really will be a center of excellence and really a model for the country, the DEA and the FDA to follow, which hopefully trickles down to what's going on in the state-to-state businesses.
Duane, enough of those Huskies. Can you replicate that same type of partnership with the University of Rhode Island?
I believe so, yes. I haven't been to them yet. I'm waiting for the next registration to drop, and then I'm going to reach out to them and schedule a meeting because they're not far from this facility, and we would love to work with them. I also would like to work with the Brown in the School of Pharmacy there. So there's multiple opportunities here. The only reason I went to UConn was because of the people involved with the agricultural department there and some of the things that I can't speak to because I'm under an NDA on what they're able to do, which helps our business case, our business model.
And Duane, when you're fully staffed, when you're built out, when you've got this business model developed, what's the level of employment that MMJ will have down in the Westerly area?
With the methodology that we're using to grow it, there'll be 20 to 30 employees managing those vertical farming units on a daily basis. And as the lab expands, there'll be a need for 10. So I would say we're around 40 people all told between the cultivation side of it and between the manufacturing of the extract in the lab.
And we talked previous to today's conversation about sort of the challenges that many aspects of the cannabis industry are facing. One of them is quality, and we get calls all the time from different players in the industry raising questions about peers or competitors, quality of their product that's being consumed either for medical purposes or what it might be in the future for recreational use. Do you have a role potentially? Can you expand into becoming a point of analysis, a fair broker per se, to be able to give some protection to both the medical consumer and then the recreational consumer, that there's almost a good housekeeping stamp of approval?
As legal is advising us right now, the way the federal regs are, is that we can't cross over to a state line. So I couldn't go to a grower in Rhode Island. I couldn't go to a dispensary. I couldn't accept any of their products. However, if the Department of Health was involved from a regulatory standpoint and a law enforcement agency got involved, not in a seizure or an arrest situation, but they took control over that product, it's our interpretation of the federal law that I could accept it from the Rhode Island State Police, and then I could produce a certificate of analytics on that product to report back and say, yes, it has arsenic in it, it has heavy metals, aflatoxins, and all the dangerous things that I don't believe are currently being done, which potentially could backfire in a big way on the state because you're creating a public health safety issue at that point. So this analytical lab license, as this market evolves, is going to be more and more important. The other issue here is that with this license, we could also import and export as a coincidental activity anywhere in the world. So I could take genetic strains from, say, Israel and move it into this building and do analytics and testing on that. I can work with law enforcement. I could work with educational institutions on instruction, and also manufacturing our extracts for the development of the pharmaceutical to get to Catalan. So this has been challenging to figure out. The DEA has issued us the first registration, which we're happy. It's been a long time forthcoming. We still have 2 outstanding. Hopefully it moves quickly. And then we'll be able to get into the science of the actual growing of the plant, which is very sophisticated. If I were to show you the methodology, it's unlike anything else in the country, and probably the world, actually.
Duane, to close the loop, these 2 drugs, one for MS and one for Huntington's, that you're working on now, they've been years in the development. How many years until those patients are able to get a script from a physician to be able to get relief from the exact 2 drugs that you're working on now? What's that whole time cycle look like?
So in Huntington's disease, which is going to be the first trial we're going to start, and the reasoning behind that is because the FDA did award us orphan designation. So that gives us an expedited process, let me say. So hypothetically, we're 24 to 36 months through our clinical trials. If we hit and find something through those clinical trials, we'd have to go back to the FDA and get breakthrough status. That breakthrough award would again facilitate it, and we're hoping that that happens. The medicine would be approved under the labeling for Huntington disease patients. We don't get into the physician's relationships with the patient. If they want to write a prescription for a medicine, an experiment, that's their business. But we will anticipate that we'll have an approval for Huntington's disease with this gel cap medicine.
So 36, 48 months away?
I would say 36 months because just I'm aware of where we're at. It's important to understand that the FDA has accepted our protocols for the clinical trials, but they put a chemistry hold on us. They call it a CMC hold. That CMC hold was because we couldn't do the experimentation necessarily in the United States that we will be able to now in this lab to be able to do the analytics to facilitate that process.
Listen, give us the last word. What should Rhode Islanders, the business community, be thinking about when smart companies like you are trying to develop, scientific solutions to these healthcare business problems? What's the guidance you give to how people should think about developing a good environment, business environment for here in Rhode Island?
Well, several things. I think we can, obviously, it's nice to be here and create this center of medical excellence in Rhode Island. We've been greeted very warmly. The town and really the government officials on the state level have been very decent to deal with. One. Two, from an educational standpoint, we would welcome the governor to come down, or any legislators that are writing these laws, that potentially they can put these proper controls in place so they don't create a public health safety issue. We're over the top here because of the FDA involvement. The DEA is more about security and diversions. They're not about drug manufacturing or the processing. So the two agencies intersect at some point, but the state government, and if the laws change on the federal basis, there could be some interaction between us creating the center of excellence here in Westerly with the state, but it's not there yet. So, in hopes that could happen, but, hey, we're here, we're a good neighbor, and if this government officials wanted to come in, we would more than welcome them to come in.
Listen, congratulations. Welcome to Rhode Island. We talked offline yesterday about the challenges of building a company from ground zero, and it makes you sleep like a baby. You roll over every half an hour and cry. So it's as easy as can be. Listen, I want to thank you so much for taking the time. I know today's a big day and making this announcement. And listen, you're not just a Rhode Island player; you're a global player as a corporation. So thank you very much for taking the time. For everybody else, stay tuned. There's a lot going on in Rhode Island. Some of it, Kate Nagel, news editor, broke a number of significant stories this morning, especially a very serious violent episode that took place over at Rhode Island Hospital. We'll have much more today and going into the evening. Stay tuned, everybody, for much more. If you haven't gotten your booster shot, go get it. There's a sub-variant over in Europe. Whatever's in Europe seems to come this way. We want to keep everybody healthy. Thanks, everyone.
Josh, thank you.